it was really exhilarating.
Yeah, I agree. It's always nice to have someone there shorten the learning curve and will tell you where you went wrong. That's kind of one of the main reasons why we read books, I think, right?
I remember like I'd been down there with my wife now, but her and her sister and some people, and we were having a good time, and we took the lesson. And I don't know if you've ever surfed, but it's some serious cardio, like next level cardio. You got to work so hard just to get this. And I remember at one point I swallowed a bunch of water and I started puking up, and I'm puking up all this blood, all this red blood. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? I'm like, what happened? And I realized that I had a bunch of strawberry daiquiris before I went surfing.
Well, that's better than the alternative, right? It's better to find out
that. It took me figuring out strawberry daiquiri, red, drinking seawater. Oh yeah, there you go.
That's funny. I love stories like that. This is the Hard Thing Podcast. Today, we are overcoming average. Welcome back to another episode of the Hard Thing Podcast. This is the podcast that seeks to help you weaponize the hard things in your life to give you a better life. Basically, the goal is to help you move through those hard things or adopt those hard things to become a better person, more capable of doing hard things. And our show today is our Monday episode where you hear from me and a guest. And I have the wonderful opportunity to have an awesome guest on today's show. He is a business owner, actually an actor as well as a father and someone who suffers from Crohn's disease. His name is Shawn Reynolds. He's really insightful, and it was really fun to talk to him because we talked about fatherhood, but also about doing things beyond your comfort level, even when it's very, very difficult. He talks about running his business from a hospital bed, which is something that most people don't do. And he talks about doing things in an unconventional way. And I guess the question that I'd like to pose to you throughout this episode is, what are you doing conventionally that's not working for you? That's not fulfilling your goals. That's not meeting what you want. So with that question in mind, let me introduce you to my conversation with Shawn Reynolds. Well, thank you for being on the show, Shawn. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Me as well. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So let me start off by asking you the question I ask all my guests. Shawn, what is the hardest thing you've ever done?
I would say, I'm sure it might sound trite, but being a father. I've run businesses, I've played sports, I've had success in a few different realms, but I find being a parent is challenging. It feels like a hostage negotiation sometimes. And it's really, really gratifying, but I don't know. I think it'd be almost like skydiving. You can't quantify the great, and it's very easy to write down the things that are challenging and difficult and why you shouldn't be a parent. But I found it one of the best things I've ever done, but one of the most challenging.
That's awesome. I've actually had that answer before. One of my guests, Dane Orge, he also an athlete. He was a professional baseball player, and I asked him, and he said, being a father, raising kids was by far the hardest thing. So you're in good company.
Yeah. If you've had a bad day at work, you can go in tomorrow and fix it. And I don't know, when you have a bad day as a parent, it's just, I don't know, I feel you've lost that day, and it takes a lot more work to fix those things maybe that you just didn't give the attention you had to. You didn't really, give it your all. I'm one of those, like, give it 110% and have no regrets. And I try to do that as a parent.
Wow. I think we don't talk enough about parenthood on this podcast because it is one thing that a lot of people have in their lives, and one thing that they deal with, and one thing that they really want to be good at. What are some of the most important lessons you think you've learned from your experience as being a father?
I think, I now have a 8-month-old daughter. I have a 5-year-old son. And, every day it's not a paint by numbers. You think that you can do something one day, and then the next day you can do the exact same thing. And a lot of times in business, not to, equate being a parent with business, but you can create processes. And, we came up with some ideas like, hey, let's not do bath night on Monday nights, because Monday is a really tough day for everybody. We're tired, and that's a little process. But if you're trying to do processes with a child, like, hey, this is why you should be going to bed early, and trying to get into a brain that's forming and trying to, that's a challenge. And I think we all know this. Hopefully kids aren't listening, but we're making this up as we go along here, like, you act like you know what you're doing, but a lot of times you're trying to figure it out. And I find have a little more figured out on the second child, and I'm a little less, tight about things. But, sometimes I say some things to my son and I'm like, okay, I said that. I don't know if it makes sense, but, we're going to go with that today. And so, I don't know. In business, I have a lot more confidence than I do as a parent at times. And I find I hear myself, that's my dad's voice. Like what my dad used to say that to me. My mom used to say that to me. I'm like, oh man, I'm becoming that guy.
Yeah. Isn't it like a common saying or something that we become our parents just because, not because we try to, it just happens.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the days sometimes come over you, we're in a very specific time, and I am right now, I'm a business owner, I'm a parent, I'm a teacher, there's a lot of demands on parents in this moment. And so it's, it's incumbent upon us to, I want kids to come out of this better for it. And there's a lot of beautiful moments. And there are some moments where I'm like, I want to pull my hair out. I'll tell you this. I haven't had a haircut in a very long time. The other day, my wife's like, I'm going to cut your hair. She's been cutting my son's. The first try, honestly, was, it was very much Jim Carrey, Dumb and Dumber. And I'm not kidding. My dad saw it on FaceTime and he said, I will pay you money not to cut his hair again. Like, just let it grow out. So she started cutting my hair. I'm a little bit vain. I used to be an actor. I'm holding my 8-month-old daughter in my arms while my wife tries to cut my hair, which is dangerous. She's flailing about.
Yeah.
We got halfway through the haircut, so I have half a haircut right now.
Well, it looks good. I have to say, you look very similar to Tom Cruise. You have kind of that same effect. So
that's really funny. I used to be a waiter actor when I was an actor back in the day. And for a while I'd get, oh, you look like Tom Cruise. You look like Tom Cruise. And whatever, you take it with a grain of salt. And I remember serving a table of 10 people and they said, you know who you look like? And I go, I know Tom Cruise. And they're like, no, my cousin Chris from Nebraska. And I felt really dumb. Yeah. I don't care if Tom Cruise is standing beside me, tell me I look just like him, I would never acknowledge it again because I really was embarrassed.
Yeah, it's always better just to kind of feign ignorance and be like, oh, okay, well, if you say so, that's nice.
Yeah.
These social niceties and things.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask, you brought up a very interesting point. Right now, obviously, again, not to beat on a dead horse, but we're in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. A lot of parents, like you said, are learning to become teachers. And my parents are actually both real school teachers. So I wouldn't ask this to them because they have more of a formal education, but what lessons have you learned about teaching children that go beyond just schoolwork and just teaching children as a parent?
Well, I'm finding a balance between trying to teach the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s to a 5-year-old. And also I've taught him how to ride a bike. We're exploring butterflies and all these great things. And I think there's so much that can be taken outside the classroom. I think you have to get the fundamentals down. At the same point in time, I think we're being pretty laissez-faire with things, like really lackadaisy and saying, some days he's going to follow the curriculum that the teachers presented. And some days we're going to throw that out the window and it's going to be like, hey, he was asking me how your eyes work or how intestines work, or he's asking me why a butterfly, and we go find a butterfly if we can, or we find a video and we just sort of roll with the punches. And I don't know, I love cooking. I love looking at a recipe and making it my own and just improvising. Okay, they want garlic and I'm going to use this instead. And I like to just sort of make it up in the moment and try to make it my own. I think that's great. And I think that'd be fun with teaching and with kids, like, let's just make this up. And he wants to stay up till 10 o'clock tonight. It's nuts, but we don't have to get up in the morning officially at an exact time. And he's watching a show and he's happy and he's learning something in it. Let's just roll with this and have some fun.
Yeah. I think that approach is a very insightful approach, because I think at school so often, and again, this is just my personal opinion, I kind of have a bias against formal education just because I feel like while trying to instill knowledge, they fail to instill how to acquire knowledge, if that makes sense. And I feel like a lot of parents are learning, like you know, like you mentioned, being able to roll the punches, encourage those natural tendencies that they have and help them develop into the person they want to be, as well as teach them responsibilities like, hey, you gotta, you know, you can stay up till 10 o'clock tonight, but tomorrow we're going to try and do some things, and you know, don't sleep until 12 o'clock in the midday, and things like that. So I think it's a very insightful approach, actually.
Well, thank you very much. The other thing I'd say is, well, I'm up here in Toronto, Canada, and I think there's a lot of things that are similar to how things are done in the States. But from a teaching perspective, you know, I used to own the largest kids sports academies, and I have some strong opinions on teaching. My wife is involved in she's not a teacher, but she's involved, works with teachers. And my thought here is, I think outdoor time is super important. If you put a kid at 4 years old in a desk and make them stay there till graduating university or college, to me, that's a prison sentence.
Yeah.
And to give kids 3 hours of homework a night, like, could you imagine you worked your day all day, you worked your 8 hours, and then at night you had 3 hours of extra work that you're not getting paid for?
Yeah.
And there's kids on the street that are doing, at 10 years old, doing 3 hours of homework. And I'm like, this is insane. Nighttime should be taking your kids to softball or hockey practice. It should be doing a puzzle with your family. This is family time. And I think homework should be banned until you get to high school. You know, life is really busy, and I think homework is not worth the time and what it takes away from families. I think outdoor time is supremely important. There's a school out here that I was looking into that was all outdoor play.
Wow.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think it's a little bit too much all or nothing, but I think kids outside playing up to a certain age are fundamental, and sitting in chairs and learning how to be a good student or a good white collar business person to come up with is teaching an old style model that I don't think is going to be, well, look at everybody working from home now. It's not about sitting your desk. It's about, you know, I'm on a conference call while emptying the dishwasher, while wiping my kid's mouth. While, you know, it's a very different world, and we need to prepare our kids for that. And besides that, you know, this is their youth. Like, let's let them live and love and just have a great time, you know, because they're going to have jobs the rest of their life.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree completely. It's definitely, we've created this system to condition our kids into this sedentary lifestyle. And it's no wonder that there's all these research studies saying, especially America, how obese people are and how inactive we are. Well, I mean, we grew up going to school, sitting in a desk for 6 hours a day. What do you expect? You know what I mean? And I completely agree.
Let's get outside and teach math by using tennis and using angles of tennis balls.
Right.
Or, like, there are lots of different ways. And you think back to Robin Williams and Dead Poet Society, where you get out and like, well, this is how you teach poetry. Do you teach it in a cement building, or do you go outside and look at a flower and look at nature? Because that's what inspires great poetry.
Yeah.
If you want to read Shakespeare, let's get out on the field there and let's, you know, if you can, obviously if you're up in Canada in January, it's a little difficult, but you know, let's reinvent the wheel a little bit here, folks.
I agree. And I think now is precisely the right time. I personally love kind of breaking down the norms because, you know, I think tradition has its place, but it definitely, you can move past its place. And actually, I kind of want to move onto a different topic a little bit. You yourself kind of did things a little bit differently. You were building a business from a hospital bed. That's something that most people generally don't do. That's not a traditional thing to do. So tell us a little bit about how you created that business, and then what took you to the hospital bed, and how you actually built the business from that hospital bed.
So I ended up in a hospital bed. So when I finished university, I studied human kinetics, which is kind of like kinesiology meets phys ed. My parents, I told them I wanted to be an actor. That was sort of my game plan. They said, yeah, you go be an actor, but get a degree first. So, you know, I loved business. I loved sports, and that's where I ended up. And from there, I moved to the big city from a little mining town up north in this place called Sudbury. So I was up there, moved to Toronto, started acting. And then I got tired of doing the actor waiter thing, and I'd always taught tennis back home. I did that to help pay for my university education. And so I started these camps, And probably the first maybe 2-3 months of moving to Toronto, I'd been feeling really ill before that. I'd traveled through Europe. I did backpacking through Germany and Paris and all these great places, but I'd just been feeling terrible. Like I'd been swallowing glass every time I ate. And I ended up getting diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is, a really challenging autoimmune disease. It's painful and people lose a ton of weight and some people are bedridden. So when I was running my business, I ended up getting pretty sick. I ended up having to go in for surgery to remove the part of my intestine that couldn't, pass any food. And so I remember the nurses coming in and telling me to get the hell off the phone because I was trying to do business calls and signing checks and all that sort of thing. And I've had to do that twice where I've had surgery and where I've had to just go in the hospital. And I've been lucky. I'm one of those guys. My parents instilled just hard work and not letting, impediments and challenges stop you. Like if somebody tells you can't do something, my dad said, you show them that you can do it. And so me being in a hospital bed is not going to stop me from running a successful business. That being said, I've always leaned upon friends and colleagues. And, that wasn't just me running the whole show. I put great people in place. And, I'm one of the most loyal, dependable friends. But at the same point in time, I'm never afraid to ask for help. And I had some great people. And I still have great people that have helped me get through these challenging times. So yeah, I started a business, ended up in a hospital bed, ran the business from a hospital bed with an IV in my arm. And I don't know, it might sound, I don't know, it makes me proud that I can do that. It makes me feel I can get through those challenging times when they come about because everybody has those challenges to say, I remember this acting coach telling me you're either the hero or the victim of your story. And that to me is a great hero story where I feel like I was able to overcome something. And I think everybody in their life has to take those things where like, hey, you know what? I was able to overcome that, or I had that challenge, and put those in your back pocket for those days that you need to just, you're not feeling like getting out of bed. You're not feeling like going to the gym. You don't think you can go to that job interview, but tell yourself, what have I been great at? I can do that again. Right.
Mm-hmm. I agree completely. And I'm so happy you brought up, hero story. And I agree. I think everyone should be proud of the difficult things that we've overcome. If you think back to Hercules, he would not be Hercules without the 12 tasks or whatever number. I don't know the story completely, but those tasks that he had to complete. And one of the main goals of this show is actually to help people actually be the hero of their own story. Growing up, I always felt like watching movies, like, why can't I be like those really cool characters on the movies that do these amazing things? And I want to help people. And so I agree completely that we should be proud of the difficult things that we overcome, because if we're not proud, then what else are we feeling about them? Shame, remorse, those aren't good things,
Yeah.
So
the only thing about the bad things that you've accomplished, you're not going to have that confidence. And, you think about movies, and I remember growing up seeing Star Wars and then later on The Matrix. And not to get too deep, but you think of Joseph Campbell. He created he talked about myths, right? You've got the young hero who has to go off and find himself, or
hero's journey, and
Obi-Wan, exactly, hero's journey. You got Obi-Wan Kenobi who is a mentor, and the father-son thing with Darth Vader. And to me, those stories resonate because you could go to a tribe that has never seen humans before, and they are telling those stories. And I think they resonate right to our DNA. And so you need to create those own stories for yourself. My parents had a really, really challenging divorce, and it was not great. And instead of me saying, oh, I'm a victim and my parents and them, and I hate my dad and I hate my mom, which is not the case, but, you have those challenges. I say, try to make the story my own of like, hey, I got through that I was starting university at that time, and I helped my brothers, and my parents did this. And what are those stories? Everybody has 3 or 4 stories they can tell themselves. And, if you feel you want to write them down, I've never done that, but they're always percolating when I need to give myself a boost.
Why do you think you had that mentality to choose a hero mentality rather than a victim mentality when your parents divorced?
I remember making this book for my dad when he turned 60. I think it was 60 he turned. And I did one for my mom, and it was said, Rules to Live by my dad, by Ed Reynolds. And what I did was, my dad was one of these guys, and one of his rules was, if you pay, you play. Meaning if you go out the night before and you party, you still get up in the morning, you go to work. And that was one of those things. If somebody tells you can't do something, you go out and you prove to them, and you prove to yourself you can do these things. And my dad, you always take care of your brothers, right? I've got 2 younger brothers. You are there. I'm the oldest. You take care of your brothers. And these are things that he hammered home. And my mom hammered home things from a different vantage point, just how you have to be empathetic towards people. And if you keep saying things over and over again, that's what you start doing. That's what you start believing. And if you keep telling yourself, well, I'm a victim and I've got Crohn's disease and I can't do things. And yeah, there are people out there who have it way worse than I do and they can't get out of bed. But what can they do, right? Maybe it's not running a business. Maybe it's today I'm going to go for a walk around the block. I'm going to cook a really healthy dinner. I'm going to change my diet to try to make myself healthy. Whatever step that is in your life, you find that. But I give that to my parents, both my brothers, and I have that mentality. And if you don't have that in your life and you feel like every time something happens, your brain's telling you like, oh, woe is me. Well, get on YouTube, get on some great podcasts like this one and hear other people and start taking those tools, because I've got a real beginner's mind. I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to see how people are doing things better than myself. Listening to people that motivate. I remember listening to Tony Robbins when I was growing up and trying to find ways to motivate myself. There's this great guy, Dr. Wayne Dwyer, who I just find, he wrote The Erroneous Zone, and he's written tons of books. Unfortunately, he's not with us, but geez, that guy, I found him just from a mental, spiritual, and motivational perspective has been really great for me. I only found him in the last year. Felt really lucky to find him, but find those tools in your life. There might be some kid down in some place that isn't a great place and has nobody around him. Find that thing that's going to be your hero story. I think people can do some great things when they believe in themselves.
Yeah. I think that's maybe one of the first roadblocks that people come up against is, can I really do this? And I find that often, as far as in the hero's journey, there's, a mentor to shepherd them through that difficult time of knowing whether or not they can do this, battling with that, their force inside of them that they're developing. And you've had various mentors throughout your life. I know that from a previous podcast you were on, you mentioned you had an advisory board that you relied on and you worked with. What were some of the other mentors throughout your life, and how have they helped you?
I remember there's this gentleman, Al Gantry, who's got to be in his 80s now, and I met him back in university. I come from a pretty humble background. My dad was a miner. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. So, lower to middle class, not, it was all hand-me-downs and that kind of thing. And I remember meeting him, and I'd worked at the mine one year and made a bunch of money. And him and I had chatted, and I was going to buy a rental property to help pay for my university. And he helped mentor me. And we've known each other 20 years now. And it's about what I said before, you want to come to things with a beginner's mind. And there's people out there who have been down the road a lot longer than you have, and you can learn from great successes and great challenges they've had, mistakes they've made. So I have reached out to people, and I'll tell you 90% of the people want to be there to help. I remember reaching out to this really great guy, David Chilton. He was on the Dragons Den here in Canada, where you guys have the Shark Tank in the States. Mm-hmm. He was on that show, and I know both Mr. Wonderful and Robert Herjavec, and I remember reaching out to him. I'd read his great book called The Wealthy Barber. And I said to him, I would love to have you mentor me. And, I'd love to just grab a lunch with you. And he said, Shawn, I get 20 some requests a day. With all due respect, I just don't have time. And I, thought about that a little bit. And I reached back to him. I said, the next time you are cleaning out your garage, the next time you are raking leaves, I don't care, whatever you don't want to be doing, I want to be there to help you with that and just be able to pull your ear and get to, glean some of your experience. And that was a thing that got me in the door with him. And he's always been there with just some advice and mentorship. Some of the other people I haven't had to work as hard to get assist me, but I would say if you're going to somebody, offering them buy them coffee or lunch, it's not worth their time. What is that person excited about? Do they love tennis? Do they love basketball? Do they love knitting? Whatever that is, send them stuff. Come to the table with something that's going to let them know that you've really taken a vested interest in them and you're not just thrown against a wall. And don't take your first no as a no. If I did that, I wouldn't be married now. I wouldn't own a business. I wouldn't have a client. If they say no, don't be insulted. Don't be hurt. Although, sometimes I have been in the past, but find a different way to get in there. There's more than one way to get to your yes. And some people want to hear that you're willing to work hard, to know that what the time they put in with you is going to be somebody that's determined. I know one person where if somebody applies for a job, they just say no right off the bat, or they just ignore their email. Let's see if that person, how much do they want their job? If somebody ignores your email and that person politely and persistently reaches back without being annoying, that to me shows somebody who wants this really bad,
Well, that story is so fun because most people, they don't like cleaning their own garage or raking their own leaves, let alone doing it for someone else for free. And it shows your conviction of the value that person could bring in your life. But I get the sense that you weren't, how do I put this? You weren't only trying to build that relationship because it benefited you. You know what I mean? It wasn't a solely selfish relationship. It was more of, I think that person's a wonderful person. I would like to have a relationship, not because of what they can do for me, but because of that relationship. And I think that's a key point. What advice would you give to other people who are seeking mentor-like figures, and how would you help them emulate something that you've done like that?
I think there's a lot of people, most people have people in their day-to-day that they converse with. I went from owning sports camps that I sold to Nike sports camps to starting a construction company with my brothers. And I called back all the VIPs. I call back every single client that comes, that asks for us to do an estimate for them. But sometimes, I just don't just call to sell a job. I call and I get to know them a little bit. Next thing you know, you talk to somebody who's like, oh, I used to own a technology company, or I used to own a construction company. I retired. And I hear them say this, and I'm like, I would love to be able to pull your ear at some point in time. And I do the same things I did before, even though I consider myself, experienced. And there's somebody out there, if I could have 10 minutes with Richard Branson, with Mark Cuban, with Robert Herjavec, with any of these people, oh my God, like the things they could bring to the table. So I sometimes get some really great people that I talk to. And it may not be just saying, hey, will you be my mentor? That's a really big ask for somebody. It's, would you be able to give me 10 minutes of your time? No, I'm really busy. Okay, well, the next time you're cleaning out your garage, or hey, your kid plays tennis. I'm a tennis pro. Could I maybe give him a tennis lesson? And maybe we would have just a spare moment while we're picking up balls where I could just pull your ear, or hey, just offer to do something for somebody. Like, I sometimes get people with our construction company. We're an exterior company. We don't do plumbing. We don't do these things. I call back those people nonetheless. I take the time to reach back to those people because it's the right thing to do, and do things because it's the right thing to do. Like, hey, you know what? You can't do anything for me, but you know what? I can teach your kid tennis, or I'm really great at math, or I'm going to do this and expect nothing in return. Sometimes I felt frustrated after doing that, but there'll be all the other times where things work out and something great comes out of it. And good karma is not a bad thing in this world, is it?
No, that's good stuff. All of that kind of underscores, like you said, the beginner's mentality that you had. Just, it's a very humble approach. And I'm very curious, why do you think you had that in all these different interactions? Where do you think that came from, or is it just innate?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I I think there's always somebody out there that's, you know what they always say, there's always someone out there tougher than you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just watch yourself, but there's always somebody out there that's smarter than you, and somebody out there that's had more experience than you have. And I, I never want to not be successful because I wasn't willing to get the information and ask. And, you know, I have a pretty successful construction company, and I've obviously had an acquisition with another company, but I find myself on YouTube watching videos of guys up there going, well, here's how I sell a roofing job. And we don't do roofing, but I heard this and I was like, well, here's what you do when you get pushback on this. And I heard that line. I was like, that's really, we've been doing this 10 years, but there's always something out there to learn, or there's something where you could take what you have and make a better mousetrap. So the second you think you know everything, you're done. That just means that you're done learning. And I hope when I'm 85, I'm not done learning. You know, there's a lot to be gleaned out there, and once you know everything, you know, pack it up, man. Retire, stop doing what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of quotes out there. I think it was, maybe it was, I don't know who said it, but you can't fill a full cup. You can't, you know, if it's full, you can't put any more in it. And it was also Socrates who, asked the oracle, who's the smartest man? And the oracle said, you are, because you know you're not the smartest man. You know what I mean? You know?
I love that.
Yeah.
And stepping back, and when I just wanted to touch upon something which I think is really important. You know, I tell these hero stories to myself and all this. That doesn't mean I don't ever wake up in bed and think, man, I don't know if I can do this. Like the person you see now at this very moment, like obviously, you know, I have great successes, but even on certain days I get up and I'm not sure, or I feel like I'm not going to be able to do it. And it takes me overcoming that speed bump or that mountain or whatever that is. I remember 5 years ago when my son was born, I had to push off one of my Crohn's surgeries, and I ended up in a hospital bed again. And I remember leading up to me going for surgery that it was such a challenge taking care of him. It was my first time, and my in-laws were there helping us. And I remember my brother coming to see me in a hospital bed, and I was like crying because I'm like, I can't even take care of myself. I can't walk, you know, down the hallway with my IV. And he made me get up. Like we talked a bit, and, you know, said, you know, don't worry, buddy, you're gonna be okay. And he sort of let me feel bad for myself for 5 minutes. And he said, let's go walk the hallway, and then we're gonna go walk the stairs. Let's try to see if we can get up a flight of stairs. And then I had to, you know, it's tough taking a shower when you have an IV in your arm, because you have to get them to tape it up, and you can't get certain things wet, and you know, you have to shave and trying to feel better about yourself. But you know, it was that one thing. It was one step at a time, and it was, but never think that, you know, I'm sure Mark Cuban has mornings he gets up, and Richard Branson, people, I don't care how great you are. And I'm not putting myself in the same boat with those gentlemen. But I don't care who you are. There are days you get up and people have their own challenges, and don't think because you see them on TV and they're putting on a good show or on social media that's the real deal. They have days where they are just trying to get through it, you know?
Yeah. I actually wanted to ask you, there was a question I was pondering before with trials and obstacles. How do you know the line to walk between pushing yourself, running a business from your hospital bed, and taking a day and letting yourself feel sorrow and just going on a quick walk? How do you know how to navigate that line between pushing yourself past your excuses and accepting current weaknesses and limitations?
I don't think there's a cut and dry answer to that. I think, you know, this week has been a really busy week for me as a parent, as a husband, as a business owner. You know, I run a business with my brothers, and so I had to try to get myself to bed earlier. And because if I push myself too hard, I can get a flare up. So I'm really self-aware with my health. And sometimes I feel like I'm riding the line a little bit here. And so I have to say, listen, I got to eat better. I got to work out. Like I'm having trouble getting my morning workouts in here at home. I just feel so busy and I'm tired a lot more than I usually am because I'm a teacher and a parent while I'm trying to run a business. And so I don't think there's an answer for that. I think sometimes I make mistakes where I'm pushing myself. And, when this whole COVID thing came about, I laid off half my staff because we had to really figure out what payroll was going to look like. And luckily we've gotten back to normal. But I found that really stressful, and I could see it coming out in myself physically. You know what I mean? Like I was not feeling great. So that was me getting to sleep more. That was me trying to work out a little bit and tell my body that, my health is paramount. Sometimes you just got to say to your wife and the little one, I just got to go down and work out or go for a quick little walk. And what's that thing when you're on a plane, you have to inflate to get your mask on first because you can't help anybody else. Yeah. And I need to take care of myself first to a certain extent. Obviously, there are times where you have to jump in and you just got to push on beyond that. But you need to take care of yourself first, I would say.
I think you're right. I think every answer we find in this life is right until it's not right. You know what I mean? Like pushing yourself is what you need to do until you need to take a break and recover and take care of yourself until you need to push, it's back and forth. And I think that was the best way you could answer that.
I love the idea of trying to find balance, and everybody loves the word balance, and it's a great idea. It's me just going, okay, I got to eat right. I got to take care of this. I've got to, have a date night with my wife, even during this whole thing, and find a way to watch a movie, even though we're both dead tired. And so it's challenging. So
these simple things that kind of keep us moving forward.
Yeah.
Is that your little one there?
My little guy.
Oh, that's cool.
Hello, little man.
Well, we're coming down. I want to ask you a few more questions before I let you go. Kind of some more fun questions. What are some of the coolest experiences you've had in running your businesses?
Well, I got to meet a lot of great people in the tennis world. Milo Ceramic, she's one of the top tennis players in the world from Canada. Jeannie Bouchard, the guy who acquired from Nike Sports Camps, Ian Hamilton, who signed Agassi and Sampras. I met all these amazing people. I remember starting my company with 6 kids and myself on a tennis court, and by the end it was thousands of kids, 50 instructors, and we turned it from like 20 locations in Toronto to like 70 across Canada. It's not to brag, but to watch it grow. I love doing plants and gardening and stuff because I love watching things grow and blossom, and to watch something that you just had a seed in your mind and for this to grow is really gratifying. That to me was huge. To work with all these amazing kids and change some of their lives. I remember some kids, they had autism and no other camp would say yes to them. And I just always said, let's try it out and see what happens. That to me was really gratifying. We did work with Sick Kids Hospital, and we held spots for kids in the POGO program, which was kids battling in the oncology cancer department. That to me was just amazing. We never ever said no to a kid being in a program because they couldn't afford it. I just found a way to throw them on there and get a racket or a ball in their hands. I don't know. That just feels amazing to do that. And, even at this point in time, people coming to you going, hey, you had an acquisition, you've grown some businesses, and to go, oh yeah, to step back and go, I've had some successes in my life, and to take the time to appreciate that, that I'm partway through this road, and that I've had successes and I've done some great things, and look back at some of the things that I'm like, why did I, at one point in time, my sports camp was doing, because I was an actor, was doing drama and improv camps. And I'm like, wow, that did not work. That was a total belly flop. And that was just dumb. But, I've had some things like that along the way, which kind of laughing about that. So to give you a long answer, there's a ton of little things and some great people I've met, some really great things. I felt like I did some stuff that changed the world a little bit.
Yeah. I think you come across as a person who puts a priority on people. And I think that's a great way to do business.
Thanks. Yeah. I, I want to be a multi-millionaire. I want to do all these great things, but if it's at the behest of my health and me not getting my kid to school in the morning and not going to his, t-ball game, and if me making an extra $1 million makes I miss out on all these great things, it's not worth it to me.
Yeah.
And that to me is a big balance in my life. And I work with my brothers, and I love working with my family, my mom, my dad, all these great family members. And if there's a few extra bucks that don't go in my pocket and goes to the team, to the family, I don't know. I feel like I'm part of something greater, and everybody wants to feel like they're part of something that's going to be meaningful.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really important thing, especially now when, we're separated by a distance and we can't really see everyone we like to see every day. And finding meaning is really important. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge people find in their lives.
And I hope after all is all said and done, and you can tell me what you think about this, but maybe we slow down a little bit and maybe not, maybe you don't need all those things from the dollar store, and maybe it's just, maybe we can simplify things a little bit. I'm not talking about going back to like Little House on the Prairie days, but let's slow down a little bit and let's put our phones aside for a moment and try to have some moments with people.
Yeah. Just being present. I think that's essential, but we're coming down to all the time I've asked from you. So let me ask you the last couple of questions I ask all my guests. Shawn, based on our conversation today, what 1 to 3 action items would you give our audience to do today or this week to improve their lives?
I think if you know what you want to do, if it's like, I want to be an actor, I want to start a business, I want to be a better parent, you need to create like some actionable items. Like, what does that mean? Like you take, okay, I want to be an actor. Well, what do I need to do that? I need to get an agent. What do I need to do to get an agent? Well, do I have any friends who have agents? I've got to take an acting class. Well, I have no money. Is there somebody who does a free, drop in? Well, figure out those 3 things, and don't try to paint the entire picture. A painting is brush strokes, right? So let's figure out what's the easiest thing you can do right now? Well, I can call my buddy who has an agent. I can drop on that in that free class. I've got a business. Well, I have no clients. Well, I know somebody who runs a similar business. Maybe I can talk to them, or let's go. But before I sold my company, I went on to see what the best sports camps in the world were. Well, where did I find it? Nike sports camps. And I saw what they were doing really well. Well, let's see what they're doing well, and maybe repaint it for what you're doing. Because if you don't have a direction where you're going and you're looking at this whole thing of like, how do I do this whole big thing? What's the saying go, you can eat an elephant, but it's 1 bite at a time.
Yeah.
What are those 3 bites? Take 3 bites, figure out what they are, and give yourself a timeline. I need to get this done by this date. Yeah. There's this great app called Evernote, and I write down all these great ideas because I'm working on a TV show and I have a technology idea, and I've got way too many ideas for the time I have in my life. But Evernote is a great free app, and I've got different pages in there. One's for TV show ideas, one's for how to grow my construction company a little bit more. One is, and so figure out what you want, write those ideas down, figure out if people around you can maybe help you a little bit, because doing something alone is one thing. Doing it with somebody can maybe, you meet them for a coffee or do a little 10-minute call every second day. That to me, that's doable. Yeah. And what we have in our life, you can get on Twitter with Elon Musk tomorrow on how to start you want to start a car company? There's probably a way you can ask a question to Elon Musk. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't get on the phone with Ford back in like 1900. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's doable. You could watch 5 hours of Elon Musk talking on YouTube about how he started, or what Bill Gates did, or what Steve Jobs did. What people have at their fingertips, if they have internet nowadays, my God,
yeah,
he's going to Harvard, Princeton, Yale, all wrapped into one, and it's specific to you. It's not like, when you go to universities, it's like going to a grocery store where you have to take everything off the shelf. Well, you pick and choose, like, okay, I want bread, I want eggs, I want milk for this.
Yeah. We are super blessed.
Yeah. So you have the tools at your disposal. Yes, you might not have the money. You may not have a lot of time, but, put down the Facebook for 5 minutes. And, my parents had to go and pay their mortgage by going to the bank and writing a check. And I can pay my mortgage. It automatically gets done, firstly.
Yeah.
Secondly, if I want my hydro to get paid, I can do that in like 2 seconds while I'm watching a game on TV. So like we have a lot more time because of this. At the same point in time, we waste a lot more time. So, get your priorities straight and say, I'm going to dedicate an hour a day to this, 20 minutes a day to this, and give yourself a shot, right?
Agreed. Take those 3 bites. But
so that to me, that's the biggest thing. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. I was just going to ask, Shawn, it's been wonderful having you on the show. How can our audience reach out to you, support you, and get to know what you're up to?
They can just reach out to me on Twitter. It's Shawn_Reynolds, which is SHAWN, not the Irish way, even though I'm half Irish. So I don't know what my dad was thinking, but yeah, reach out to me. You have a question. I'll always do my best to reply. I'm not selling a book. I just like, if this can help a few people or give them some nugget, like if they could take something off the shelf of what I have today from the grocery store and say, listen, this is going to help me, take that thing and maybe they're going to create something better in the world and make their life and maybe some people around them better. That's a win in my book.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, I will get that in the show notes, and I'm confident that people will take something of value from this conversation. We've talked about a lot, and I think it was a fascinating and fun conversation. So thank you for being here.
You've been great to speak with. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me as well.
Thank you. What did I tell you guys? What an amazing conversation. What a fun conversation. Shawn's a fun guy. He's really, really down to earth, really fun to talk to. I enjoyed it a lot. And frankly, I'm not a very social person, but Shawn was able to make me feel very comfortable. So that was nice of him, and it was a fun conversation. And I hope you answered that question for yourself. I hope you answered, what things are you doing that are conventional that aren't really working for you? And now the next question is, what are you going to do to change that up? So I want to invite you to go out and do some hard things. As well, I want to invite you to support the podcast. Now, there are a couple ways you can do that. First one is to hit that subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe and that notification bell so you never miss a single episode. We actually have episodes coming out Mondays and Thursdays. On Thursdays, I join with my co-host Ty Crockett, where we actually give each other challenges and talk about the action items that Shawn just gave us, basically in a live experiment of trying to do hard things. So you see me and Ty put ourselves down in the trenches, trying to do hard things and improve our lives in an attempt to hopefully inspire you to do the same. Now, the next thing you can do is actually join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/The Hard Thing Podcast. There, you can actually submit challenges for us, me and Ty, to do, and that we'll announce on the Thursday episodes. So facebook.com/groups/The Hard Thing Podcast. Also, there you can join with like-minded individuals who are trying to do hard things, who are trying to make themselves better and push forward in their life. Next, you can actually go to audibletrial.com/The Hard Thing Podcast and get a free audiobook today. You can get a free audiobook from Audible, as well as start a free 30-day trial. They have over 180,000 titles of every sort of genre. I love books. I love audiobooks. Frankly, I kind of go a little bit crazy with audiobooks, but go get a free audiobook today. Go to audibletrial.com/The Hard Thing Podcast. Get started today. Last thing, to support the podcast, we have a goal to raise $1,000 to Operation Underground Railroad. They're a nonprofit organization, and what they do is they go undercover to rescue kids from sex trafficking. Imagine an earthquake happens, right? And you're a small child, maybe 8 years old. You don't know where your parents are, and you see an adult, and they look like they would help you. They smile, and you trust them. And actually, it turns out that they are a human trafficker, and they sell you into slavery to someone you don't know, you've never met, and you feel lost. You feel like you have nothing. And then one day you meet someone who saves you. Someone who comes into the darkest place and gives you some light. They give you hope again, and they take you out of that hellhole, and they give you a new life. That's what Operation Underground Railroad does. They rescue kids who have no other chance, but you and I can do something about it. You and I can do something about it today. So First thing, go to OURrescue.org and just get involved. Get to know their message, donate some money, but also donate some money to our campaign to raise them $1,000. Go to GoFundMe.com/overcoming-average. All the money goes to Operation Underground Railroad, and it's to help them go on more missions and rescue kids. So donate some money there, help us raise $1,000, and let's bring these kids home. Last thing you can do to support the podcast. I want you to go out and do hard things, because I promise you, I know this from experience. Every time you do hard things, it makes you a better person. Because every time we do hard things, we overcome average.